it's open every year, and from time to time, they would have different calls for proposals for persons to apply. So why adaptation finance? As I indicated to you in the first session, when you're looking at opportunities for agriculture, especially now, we have to look at it from the perspective of adaptation. Basically, how are we adapting to the changes in the climate? So under climate finance, they have about three, you could call it three particular ways of implementing climate action or strategies for climate action. Remember, when we're talking about climate finance and even disaster risk finance, we are actually speaking about the impacts that are occurring as a result of temperature rise. So that's one thing you need to be aware of. And as a result of temperature rise, let me share my deck. I just wanted to share those little. So as a result of the temperature rise, it is the very reason why governments all together came under the UN framework to engage into what we call or sign the Paris Agreement. So right now, as we speak, this week, they're having what they call the Conference of Parties. Anyone knows what that is? COP? Have you heard of people going to COP?
No, I haven't.
Yes, COP.
You've heard of COP, some people haven't. Okay. So just to give you context, because you did do sustainable agriculture, but you have to know where sustainable agriculture falls under. So we know, at least you and I, are already experiencing the impacts of this climate change in many different ways. But how was climate change caused? By who? In the Caribbean, North St. Vincent and the Grenadines did not cause climate change. Yes, human beings caused climate change through industrialization. They implemented different types of processes that were unsustainable and, of course, emit a lot of these greenhouse gases. So over the years, they have been observing a warming of the planet. And over time, this global warming has caused a number of series of impacts. And I don't think I have to go into that. We're already experiencing those impacts, apart from other hazards like the volcanic eruption. So within this regard, when different countries recognize to the scientists warning us about global warming, they try to see how best they can come together and sign a pact to sort of reduce the temperature. So at the time, they were talking about the planet heating up to 1.5 degrees will become too unsustainable. I think they've changed that to 2 degrees. So they try 2 degrees or less. This means you have to implement different type of projects or actions that help reduce or maintain that temperature. Hence why they call it mitigation, climate mitigation. Any activity or project that reduces or prevents emission of greenhouse gases is called mitigation. I don't know how many of you are aware of Guyana. Guyana got, how much billion it was? I think it was 700 billion. Yes. Guyana got 700 billion for their Amazon to keep it nice and green and not chop down the trees. All because that would prevent any future emissions of greenhouse gases. So what is interesting is this opportunity has created a potential market for different types of climate finance. So coming back to this conference of parties called COP, I can't remember the year, but I came to an agreement to say, to recognize that humans have contributed to this phenomenon of climate change. And the countries specifically that have created the most will have to provide financing to help the others that are not. So in short, you're talking about developed countries helping developing countries, with the exception of like China, because you know everybody sends their products to China to process. So China became the offshore hub for production, and to some extent India. Those are the only main countries that fall under, that are in developing countries, but did contribute to the impacts and have to contribute money. So the UN they came and everybody signed and everybody made commitments. Commitments meaning goals or ambitious goals to say, okay, I'm going to try and reduce the temperature. So this is exactly where it started off from. And over time, they recognized that, but hang on, while all these people here globally are trying to reduce the impacts of this global warming or prevent us in the region, you know, when they cough, we catch a cold. Us in the region, unfortunately, feel the full brunt of the impacts with hurricanes and all these worsening. In agriculture, it is by far one of the largest risks. Yeah, it's one of the biggest risks. 1 second. Okay. So adaptation came about the recognition that countries, especially small island developing states, can do anything, and they did not contribute anything towards the emission of greenhouse gases. Now, we implement a climate mitigation project, something that reduces greenhouse gases. Obviously, if you're using normal diesel fuel for your energy generation, moving to renewable is reducing greenhouse gases. But for us, we do it because of our energy security. You want to reduce costs for the farm, you want to reduce costs for your agribusiness production. One of the key things you would be looking at is maybe incorporating some sort of renewable energy system as part of some of the climate smart solutions you're incorporating. But you're not doing it well. When you're doing it, it is going to reduce carbon emissions, but maybe you're doing it because of lowering costs. That being said, that is what you call mitigation. But the reality is we have these changes happening, and we have to make changes in order to continue. So we recognize this has already happened. There's nothing we can do about it, but change to adapt to this new reality, and then strengthen our systems, our processes, our structures to support us in order. So that is why you would find you have 3 strategies: the mitigation, the adaptation, which really refers to structural adjustment, and the structural adjustment of all the different systems, be it social system, economic system, ecological system, on our livelihoods. But why are we talking about it? Because in as much this has created an opportunity, a new window for climate finance. And I have to raise it now, especially since this is our last session, so you recognize that now until the next couple of years, climate finance and also insurance will be one of the biggest things, especially for our sector that we're treating here. So this is key. And a lot of funds are going to be funneled, and sometimes you may have to justify your project within the context of these parameters. And if you don't understand the lingo, you know how sometimes there you see opportunities, but they're using terms that are just so weird and not normal, very technical. So after you read it, you have to read it 10 times, and it's still not clicking. Don't worry, it happens to all of us. And hence why you go to these type of events and learn about the lingo, so you can understand how to frame your project and participate, because climate is very with society, community, ecology, economy, everything. It's all connected. So when you are fashioning a project, especially an adaptation project, you have to take that into consideration. And especially now, we're looking at building resilience, which really means our ability to resist, absorb, and accommodate and recover. So within resilience, you're also looking at some components of maybe disaster risk preparedness, which is something you have to focus on. Being able to plan, have your resilience plan in the event something is to happen. How are you going to absorb the shock, right? How can you recover if a hazard comes through? Story in our first session with regards to some of the, you could say, fallouts from Lesuffre. And, you know, who would have thought, yes, it's a blessing and a curse in that we can now take the fertilizer, because the ashes fertilizer, package it and sell. That's a revenue opportunity for you, and a side revenue stream. And sell to other farmers, not just here, in other regions, because good fertilizer and natural fertilizer is very rare, and we have ample amounts of it. Of course, you have to go through that whole product life cycle. So the same way, if you're doing agro-processing and you're creating new products, you have to go through that same life cycle, do testing, whatever, so that whatever your final product is good. I'm starting to see a lot of volcanic ash being used in face masks and a lot of these things. So we have to sometimes look out of the box and say, okay, this terrible thing happened, but how can we turn, lemon into lemonade? So both adaptation and resilience are activities or strategies that happen on the local level. But as you recognize, when you're looking at your sustainable agriculture, it does require investment. Changing, when you talk about structural adjustment, it means transforming a system, a process, a method, introducing new technology, getting trained in new areas. Who's going to pay for that? How are you going to handle it? So it is always some perspective. It is now much easier for you to then participate in these call for projects. Yes, some might be a little maybe high end from a bigger entity, but don't stop yourself, because there are a number of entrepreneurs that recently got 50,000 through different type of projects, like I said. And St. Vincent doesn't have issues with getting projects. You just have to know where to look to get them. So I think hopefully Helen's daughters will be able to curate some of this information so that you're always in the know and know exactly how to get them. So an example of climate mitigation project is like your renewable energy. And sometimes you can have a combination of both, especially when you're thinking of your farm, where you're combining, say you're combining solar water pumps. You can have a combination of things. You need solar water pumps, plus you want to reduce your energy costs and so on. You can use, you can go solar, especially if it's a big cost factor. Because from a business standpoint, we don't necessarily, I mean, St. Vincent and the Grenadines hardly make a dent when it comes to carbon emissions. And even if we were to say we're going to go, we don't have the landmass of Guyana with the Amazon in the backyard, right? So most times you would find that, yes, we might need to upgrade some infrastructure to reduce our energy costs. But while you're doing that, as a consequence, the benefit is that you are actually mitigating climate. But for most of us, especially in agriculture, you find climate smart agriculture falls squarely under adaptation and resilience, and things like implementing water conservation projects are key, and other different type of initiatives. It could even be a private sector type initiative. So I wanted to share that with you. Any questions? So when we're talking about the Paris Agreement, countries came together, and developed countries indicated they're going to allocate some monies every year towards helping developing countries or countries that are experiencing these disasters, like small island states, to help them with their climate action and help them implement their goals. So the goals that each member state would have committed themselves to, they're called nationally determined contributions. Has anyone heard of this? Hello, ladies? I know it's a new topic.
No, I've never heard of it before.
Oh, I haven't
Never?
heard of it.
So every country has theirs. I mean, generally speaking, this is the one for Barbados. Each NDC will have a specific goal. I'll go and get ours specifically and see what our NDC says. So each NDC would say, well, they're committing each country will say, okay, we're committing to reduce our greenhouse gas emission by X amount by whatever year. So you're making a commitment. Now, you know, even though we don't necessarily contribute any major, maybe even less than 1% of carbon emissions, because of how the Paris Agreement started off with lowering the temperature, most countries made the commitments and then documented it in their NDCs. For sure. See me writing thinkers. There you go. So St. Vincent has got, hold on. Oh, look, we even have a registry. So St. Vincent has submitted, it's a big document that documents the commitment. I think by now, you see, they would have upgraded the national determined contribution. And by the way, a lot of the money St. Vincent would have received was because they actually have this document, because it also acts as a, it acts like a high-level planning document to say, okay, at least the government recognizes these areas and these are their priorities with respect to climate action. And why should you know? I will tell you exactly why. There's also a cross-sector policy specifically for agriculture, so we're going to get here, and some additional policies like the National Adaptation Plan. So you need to be able to later have access to the, let me get the NDC first. It looks like the first NDC we did was in 2016, and then they should have a more recent one following the volcano. So I'll just go to the NDC registry, which is under the United Nations framework for convention. But in other words, in that document, they would say, what is their goal for climate mitigation and what is their goal for climate adaptation? Since 2016, they would have, of course, designed that National Adaptation Plan, which would have, of course, prioritized agriculture and then also prioritize adaptation. So here just shows you the submission date. Oh gosh, it's still active. Maybe they're in the process of renewing it. But I do know that they will be adding additional things with respect to my brain, with respect to adaptation. But while we're looking at that, I do know FAO, they have like some cross-sector policy documents. So you can think of the National Adaptation Strategy as a policy, the document, and the NDCs. So here they had like an initial intended document before they did the actual NDC. And here you can see that they're looking at reducing greenhouse gases for 22%. When I find the most current one, then you can see what our commitments are for it, and you'll be able to see what were the commitments for supporting agriculture and so on in that. Here is also a very insightful one. A National Adaptation Plan for St. Vincent and the Grenadines is very key to look at. Okay, here, this is one referencing it. A national, it's a St. Vincent and Grenadines submits a National Adaptation Plan. And the National Adaptation, what they put in their NDCs. So it calls for midterm evaluation. The selected adaptation actions placed special emphasis on agriculture and water sectors, which was identified by stakeholders as particularly vulnerable. So this means anytime you go for a project, all you have to do, really and truly, you could mention the National Determined Contribution document, and they also have priorities for sustainable development. But this document, the NAP, it was from the second phase is 2024 to 2030. So really and truly, you can actually reference this National Adaptation Plan, which talks about priorities for agriculture. Later, I won't use up the class to look for the actual document. When we find it, we'll have to share it in our Google Drive for you guys. But the reason why I'm mentioning it is that some of these opportunities, when they're asking for concept notes, there are some questions where they want to find out what are your national priorities. And when you get a question like that, all you have to do is identify what the country is doing, especially in your sector. So if it is a government adaptation plan states they're going to do this and this, so my activity falls in line with their vision and their commitment, something like that. It's very key point because a lot of people lose notes for this. So I just wanted to share this opportunity. It is under adaptation. I think I'll forward you the mail, Toya, because they have I think they're accepting concept notes on the 15th, but they have a meeting, a webinar on the 15th of December. So I think I encourage all of you to see if you could participate in that one. Okay. And more or less, it's not only, you shouldn't only be looking at coverage for like finance, you should also be looking at additional things like guarantees that can cover your risk. And I did mention ECGCP, PC. Let me put it here. We had a conversation last class, right? This one, Eastern Caribbean Partial Credit Guarantee Scheme. Once it able to access up to is it 300,000 EC? And in this scheme, I believe the scheme covers 80%. Well, when I say covers, guarantees 80% to the bank, because you know what happens to financial institutions? They look at you, look at the industry and figure, listen, this is all high risk. So you have to, in order to lower their risk, what the central bank has decided to do is to set this up, provide funds towards it, and tell the banks, listen, I want you to really start lending to SMEs and high, you know, and micro, well, MSMEs, holistically, especially in agriculture. And we will guarantee 80%. So let's just assume if something were to happen, something happens for crops or whatever, you cannot meet whatever, and you get into a state where the institution cannot recover, they will not lose all their funds. They will only lose 20% in this thing. So the fund will cover 80%. So this is a way of encouraging the banks to please go ahead and provide. Don't want to take any risk, so they might tell you, well, come with 20% of the amount you want to borrow. And then they know the rest is covered. So they list Vincent and the Grenadines, but we need to make sure. I don't know if Bankers in Vincent has already rolled this out, have they? Ladies, have they?
If they have,
Oh, Renita
we have
said
not
you
really heard about it.
you just had a week of training.
Not
Very good.
anything.
Oh, nothing. Okay. Yes, we need to focus on risk management. Risk management. It's a key thing for accessing any type of financing. Financing and funding. And there's a big difference. Funding is like grant capital, where you're not necessarily paying back. But when you're going to a bank or you're going to a private person, you're looking for financing because they're doing it for free. There's some sort of premium. They need to cover their risk and they need to also make some kind of return. So no one's heard of it. Well, we'll keep abreast, but this should definitely help. I know in St. Kitts, a couple of banks are offering it, or at least the National Bank for sure. And I think a credit union is in the progress of doing so. So, okay. Let me stop sharing and let me switch over to the other thing. Any questions, concerns, interests? This is the week of, the conference of parties and everybody's talking climate disaster. Everyone's talking about crop insurance and types of insurance to design. Okay. What is through the World Bank?
The funding that you were
Okay.
talking about with the credit. So I think I had a gentleman interviewed me concerning that whole process. He was looking entrepreneurs, he was looking at entrepreneurs and how you can acquire loans that would be backed by the government and the World Bank per se through the government.
Things like even the Green Climate Fund, which is like the largest fund for climate finance. It's not the only one, and they have other private ones. Adaptation Fund also funds a lot of agriculture projects, but they might not necessarily fund a project directly to an individual or company. They might look at like holistically, like Helen's daughters, and say, okay, these are the areas you're looking at, and might finance a much broader project as opposed to an individual one. Or, that's why they like to look at associations and so on, where they can identify some commonalities and people benefit. Or if it's a case where we need to increase access to finance, maybe a credit union applies to get a credit line so that they can lend it at very good concessional terms. So that's the only thing with it. But the process of learning about their process and how they write their project proposals, it's a fantastic skill that once you kind of understand how they even evaluate the projects, it's easy for you to participate in a conversation and apply for smaller project opportunities. And I was checking, we missed a couple smaller opportunities for green climate, but they're not dead. I mean, they have some that renew every year that we can actually tap into. Any questions? So let me pull up the revenue-based financial model that I was promised to share with you and how it works. questions? Everybody is too quiet. Are you tired? I know I'm a little bit tired. Hello, ladies. Ladies.
We are all here. We are all here. You're
Good
listening.
night.
Too quiet. You're too quiet. You're making me feel a kind of way, like wondering, well, what really going on here?
We are here. We are here.
The presentation is actually storing a lot of critical thinking here. So
Oh,
not necessarily a question per se, but with regards to project and project writing. I know for certain that there have been several groups or organizations that's set up to assist, whether it's an individual or an entrepreneur, even a group. They've been in play. They've been there putting things in place to educate persons as to how to go about doing project proposals. I am a part of several organizations, and we would have sent forth several project proposals as it pertains to sustainability and agricultural practices.
right.
And one of the greatest concerns for those persons who are usually overlooking the project proposal, it is that of risk management. It doesn't reflect well inside of these proposals. I am not too certain if the proposals themselves can be designed in such a way where there is a stem that lends itself to the breaking down of risk management. Because from what I've seen, the stem that is there to simply define how you would approach these several factors of risk management, it doesn't lend itself to, giving much details or being specific as that regard. So I am not too certain if like the organizations who are responsible for project proposals, to be specific, can retool or redesign that section that requires us to put in possible risk management techniques, possible ways of dealing with several risks that may be incurred. I'm not too certain if they can put in stems or guiding questions that will lend themselves to that individual or an entrepreneur or a group on a whole to be more specific in detail.
Okay, you have a very good point there.
Good night.
Some concept notes and project documents, and you're right, they can simplify it. And they simplify it by keeping it the way it is, but providing guiding questions.
Yes.
I recently did a call for projects for thinkers, and what I had done in the form, I had created some guiding questions. So if everyone would like, I can provide you a version of it and you can use it as practice, because those type of questions actually come up in a lot of project documents, but it's done in such a user-friendly way that you're going through and it's asking you the questions for each different section. So when you have to explain and tell the storyline, you're also sharing information about what those risks are. That's one. On the other hand, when you are writing into some of the areas, you can actually mention it as part of, if you're doing a project description, you can mention it even in the project description. This is where we are. This is what we do. These are the challenges we face. right? And we recognize these are a risk, and this is how we've been addressing to help us get here. And we're mindful that these are the risks, and the funding will help us put in additional risk management strategies. Isn't that another way of framing it?
Definitely. I believe it is, yes, it's quite a provisional and a great way of go about. Well, it's improvising and being innovative in a sense in that area. So
Mhm.
definitely.
But I know, like, for example, the Indian government has given CARICOM funding, and I think it's through, what's that ministry? Planning? Through planning, they normally would send out the information on the opportunities. So get in the know. If you know someone planning, economic planning, from time to time, you need to check with them, because I think they are also the national designated authority for the Green Climate Fund, if I'm not mistaken. So what's his name? I'll get the name before the end of the night. But I think you should also reach out to him and connect with him and ask what are the opportunities they have, right? Because from time to time, listen, especially when it comes to private sector, you'll be surprised that the NDA here told me how many times he gets private sector projects. But because it's not in the interest of the government, and if it goes to a specific department that deals with only government, only type of investment, they might not share it. So you wouldn't know. But if someone is there checking in ever so often and they tell me, I saw this thing coming through, then, they might decide to share it and so on. So that's something to consider. Any other questions?
It was I don't even know it's not a question or suggestion, but there I can't remember the name. They not really do grants. It's next year they do, but the way they would have to would come on board to do donation. However, when they do the donation, before they give the donation or grant, they would have project writing courses that you will take. So you'll be certified. So they would give you the information on what persons would expect you to. They would encourage you to, okay, say, for example, sustainable development, or they would give you the key points. And when they're gonna give you the donation, they don't give you everything one time. So the first phase you will do, if you stick to what you say you're doing, then they will release the other amount. They don't get, if it's a 50,000, they wouldn't do it like that. They would do what you're supposed to.
Yeah. Connection.
They could go ahead with the project. And once you're
Taking off my
successful with that
video.
first phase, they
Yes,
will go on to
Ricardo
the
Cedric.
second phase. But I think they do it's every 2 years or so. Sorry? Hello?
Yes, go ahead. My connection dropped a little.
Mine drop as well. Yes, so they would do it. I think it would have different persons coming on board from different continent countries. So it would be every 4 years, every 2 years, but they would prepare you for that time, the questions and everything, what they're looking for, these little boards that you can use that you would be doing to save climate, everything, the fishes, anything to do animal friendly and things like that. They would be able to assist you. That's what they're looking for. That is what they're all about. So we just have to know how to phrase it, and what we can do is find out when it is the next course, when they have in the next course. They normally have it by the Methodist Church Hall, but it's very informative, and it also trains you how to go about in writing project as group and individuals.
Very good. Who does that? Yui?
It's behind you where I can't remember the name, unfortunately. A small, some grant, I can't remember it, but I think when I get the information, I could forward it in the chat. That
It's
should be okay, right?
Center for Enterprise Development.
No, it's not Center for yes, that is it. I think it's G.
Center for Enterprise Development, and they have a grant program that
I
well,
think so.
teaches
Just
SMEs,
I
small
think it's
business owners from different sectors, agro processors,
they
how
normally
to,
deal with agriculture.
oh,
Thing to do with agriculture,
At
agro
NPF?
saving
processing.
coral reefs, and yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll get
they're
the name I don't want to misquote the name, that's why. So once I get the
okay.
proper name, I'll just forward it in the chat.
so
Well,
like,
I'm a
is it Jeff Grant scheme?
No, that's not it.
Okay,
I'll get the information and forward it in.
okay, very good. So I have. Okay, very good. I'm just opening up this manual I created. See, this is going to be your manual and my giveaway present. In this manual, I cover a number of things. Oh, let me know when you can see my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, we can.
So remember I told you today we'll be looking at introducing, for those of you who are not familiar to the cash flow, to the business model canvas. I introduced it a little bit to you. I got a request before to say they want to at least start looking at how those financial statements look. So we'll look at that. And just a little bit on the cash flow canvas. As you know, financial literacy is quite wide and quite varied. We can literally have a whole course dedicated 8 weeks to financial literacy and keep on learning. So it's for me is to try and pick out the most important things that you require, but also provide you something that you can continually refer to and build upon. So for me, key things, effective cash flow management. That's one of the things as agripreneurs we struggle with. Am I correct? Well, everybody struggles with cash flow management. And so this will give you a few tips on certain methods and strategies that you can use in terms of addressing that. We did look at least some elements of cash flow, looking at money going out of the business and money flowing in and flowing out. It flows in the form of revenue or income, and we looked at the different types of income, like your revenue for your business, be it passive, be it active, and also portfolio income coming from your assets. We talked very specifically about how basically wealthy people grow their funds because they invest in assets and not lifestyle. And we need to do the same. You can still have a lifestyle, but have the asset pay for the lifestyle. So whenever you have money flowing, make sure you're allocating your money towards assets that will continually generate for you. We have not yet looked specifically at cash flow management. I'm hoping we can at least even touch a little bit. But I will show you what I've provided for you. It gives you definitely a framework that you can continually utilize to kind of check to see where you are and some tips. So here you would know if you have a cash surplus or a positive cash flow, or if there's a deficit, because these are very important measures. You might have contracts. Listen, I've had cases where I have contracts. On paper, I look rich. It looks really good. But am I putting in the mechanisms to chase after account receivables? Am I giving credit? Am I not following up? You have to put a system for all these things. If you're giving people credit, well, you need to have a system to chase after your money. Or else, that is your money in the wind. That's your money not being put to work, you understand? And it's still being accounted for on your balance sheet. I will introduce to you a cash flow canvas, which is, we tend to use in this modern times of innovation things and use canvases because we're very busy. And if you can visualize so much easier as opposed to all these going through like 100 packs of documents, etc. Key things, key measures, liquidity. Everybody know the word liquidity? Who doesn't? Say no in the chat. Okay, the small grants program, yes. Jeff. You don't know the word liquidity? Okay, who else? Being liquid is being able to cover your expenses, cover all your commitments. It means having liquid cash, liquid. Anything that you can convert into cash that can cover your obligations is called liquidity. Real estate is not liquid, except meaning you have it on rent, income every month, then you are unlocking liquidity from your real estate assets. So you have assets that could be highly liquid, like cash, assets that could be partially liquid, like maybe USDT or Bitcoin, because it can easily be converted into cash. Financial instruments, maybe shares because there is a ready market for it and it's easier to sell. A house, unless it's a cash flow property, a traditional house, sometimes they put it on the market and it doesn't sell for years. That's why they say land, real estate, even though land appreciates, it's still illiquid. They use the word illiquid, not liquid enough. Unless you happen to have someone who's ready to buy a house immediately. Liquidity. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Mhm. Then, of course, we talk about revenue is not equal to profit because you have your direct, immediate expenses, and then you have your operating expenses. So once you address all the expenses and all your additional commitments, so it's not just expenses, it's commitments. And when we use the term commitments, we're talking about if you have to pay what you call it? You're paying contributions for staff, so you have people employed, and you have to pay your contributions. Your NIS contributions would factor as a commitment to government. Luckily, you're in a space where, because it's sort of incentivized, or as a part of a government incentive, we're not going to be taxed, which is a blessing. These have to put up with in little SVG to pay taxes at inland revenue. So it's agriculture's a priority, food security and all of that. No government is going to be put their head on the block to start taxing the hell out of the company. But we all feel the impact of taxes if you're importing your equipment and so on and so forth. So you have to try and find ways. And you can go to the ministry, but you have to go ahead of time to tell them you're bringing X equipment and you want an exemption from the duties. It is possible. It's just that it's not necessarily streamlined for you to get it done instantly, but it should be, because guess what? You have Invest SVG promoting to foreigners and investors to come and invest in SVG. And when they come, they give them some nice packages of incentives. What about the small businesses? If someone can do it, so can you. And I believe you might have to go first. I have to check to see which ministry is now in a program. And yes, the last session we did talk about industry having a program where you can access 5,000 or something like that, or 10,000, small amounts, but it still does come in handy. But you can also make a request if it is you're bringing in machinery and stuff for the taxes for the duties to be made exempt. So the only thing you might have to pay for is maybe the VAT, which we can't run away from. So provisioning, meaning setting aside for known financial commitment, and financial commitment will more mean things like taxes, NIS, contributions, etc., things like that. Make sense? Hello.
Yes, please.
Yes, yes.
I have to keep checking, because working capital. This is very, very important. And sometimes when you're going to seek financing, you have to ask the question. Sometimes you just need some money on the float, especially, let's talk about the business we're in right now. You do definitely need some money on float because you have to, should I say, finance, you are the investor financing the business until when your crops grow or your cattle or your pigs or whatever grow to the point where you can sell it. So there's some sort of patient capital that needs to be put in there until it performs because of the nature of the business. Or unless you have other side hustles and so on that you're able to then turn over quickly. But working capital is pretty much what a lot of people are looking for. Because when you're asking for investment, you can have working capital, or you could be asking for capital expenditure, meaning you're buying a new equipment, like an asset, and that requires a huge lump sum. That's more of a capital, what will fall under capital expenditure as opposed to working capital. It's not everyday, day-to-day business. So anyway, you're getting this. This gives you a little bit of a health check. And these are key areas. Trading profitably. So these are key factors you want to be checking on. When I provide you the cash flow canvas, it will ask you a few questions. And some of the key things you want to know is your business trading profitably? Yes or no? Do you have enough to put aside to meet financial commitments? So, fine. In our case, if you have staff, then you're looking at NIS contributions. Oops, my power. Toya, do we have time for a break?
Hi, well, yes, it's actually 7:18.
Okay, yes. So let's have a little 5 minutes. Let me go plug in. Okay. Sorry, as I came straight off from the venue. Quickly rushed here. Oh, okay. So let me put on the timer for the break. So we don't go over. We're doing what, 5 minutes? It's 31 pages. What I put the revenue finance? Ah, yes, I have it here.
Nani?
We're taking a short break. We'll be back. Okay. Okay, we're coming back. One second. Anna just reached out, so I might be able to have her join us. Okay, everyone went stretched, ready? All right, so let me share my screen. Okay, and I also, who is it that asked me the last time, what method can you use to pitch to get investment? Who was the person that asked me?
Hi, Angeline.
Okay, Angeline, I have something for you too. Uh-huh. All right, here's my business model calculator. Oh, boom. And the business model canvas template. 1 second, I'm about to share my screen again. Okay. Latoya, is there?
Yes, I am.
Hi. You know when we're giving them the handouts?
Sorry, what handouts are referring to?
No, I'm about to give some handouts.
Mm-hmm.
Because I recognize that based on a lot of the requests, there are some things we might not be able to adequately cover fully, but I will still touch on them and address them. So through a handout.
Okay, that is fine. As soon as you pass them to me, I'll share them with the group.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so where I was before, let's go back. Right, so this financial literacy guide, I was just going through it high level, so I'm just gonna, it has different components and different sections. So obviously, one of the key criteria that you are going to need to understand and from management framework. So as I was saying, it looks at 4 areas, 4 key areas. Are you profitable? Is your business generating liquidity? Because look at it, if you don't have liquidity, how are you going to pay yourself? Pay others. So this, of course, is going to be one of the biggest areas you're focused on. I was saying, do you have enough to put aside to meet financial commitments? And when they talk about financial commitments, we things like, if you have a loan, are you making those interest expenses? Or, you know, if you, or even taxes, etc. NIS. Then, of course, are you trading profitably? This comes like at the end. Are you ensuring that you have, even if you increase your revenue, if your expenses are too high, you might not be making profit. So this is why sometimes they have some businesses operating for years and they haven't made a profit, you know, but they're making a lot of revenue. They're just existing. That's why sometimes you have businesses make a loss. So don't be shy if the fact of the matter, if you are able to generate revenue and buy and sell, then it's just a matter that of over time, you might be able to then start making a profit. But it shouldn't make you feel that you're not eligible for anything. It doesn't mean that. There's some businesses it takes 5 to 7 years before they can start seeing even a profit. So this is why debt exists. Debt exists to help you with your working capital while you're working on trying to get it profitable. Yeah. Second, I have someone coming to me. Okay. All right. So this cash flow management framework is a key thing. And so the guideline is going to look obvious, and planning does not mean it's only for a startup or if you're just starting out. You have to continuously keep planning every year. It covers budgeting, record keeping elements, because under here we might talk about your budgeting and so on, but we didn't really go deep into record keeping. We mentioned it, we spoke about it. Funding your business, we spoke about that extensively, and I'll be sharing with you a couple of frameworks. Managing your cash flow, very important, and I want to at least touch on it before we go. Planning regular financial commitment, that goes without saying. So each section looks like this, and you have some key priorities. You get a quick snap where we look at some key areas, and we'll come back to this as we're looking at financial statements, because this is very important. I've talked about cash flow, and we are now familiar with cash in, cash out concept. Things you consider to include in an invoice quickly. Chasing bad debts, reducing your customer payment terms. This is very important. So I'm going to share with you some sheets before we go. And then some key planning tools that we could use are the business model canvas. And here I'm going to share with you the Excel version of it. And here you can work on your revenue model and cost. So we're going to do this exercise before we leave today, for sure. And here are some success factors. We already talked about books, so let's have a conversation about revenue streams and income. We have talked about income from a statement standpoint, but then when we're looking at and looking at how we can optimize our revenue, and that's one of the things you had indicated to me was quite a priority. How do we increase our revenue streams so that we can, increase our overall revenues, and perhaps you can even optimize what you've already put in place. Assets. Remember, you might have some key operational costs that are high, but if you not necessarily add too much more investment on that side, but you can increase the number of products, items, services you're generating, you can perhaps optimize that. Questions to ask: what value are your customers really willing to pay? How do they prefer to pay? It's a pity PaySwift. Is PaySwift still functional?
Nope.
Yeah, it's a pity. But maybe Dcash. Basically, if your customer's on Dcash and you can pay in Dcash, why not? Because it's faster. How much does each revenue stream contribute to the overall revenues? Very important. Do you have a system to track it? I hate to say it, but most of our accounting systems are very cumbersome and don't necessarily give us the right kind of data that we're looking for. Hold on one second. Someone has just come to me. Sorry, ladies, I'm back. Looking for the AC. So yeah, sorry about that. So let's talk about those revenue streams because they're very, very how we can revamp our business models. So how many types of potential transactional revenues can you get from a customer or from a particular product line? Anyone? Tell us about what you do in your business. And how you can optimize this. Ladies, hello. Keep on hearing from the same people. Natalie Huggins. Patrice, you're very quiet today. Sharon Allen. Too quiet. Charlotte. Okay, nobody wants to answer. Is a trick question?
Could you repeat the question, please?
I'm asking, let's have a conversation over revenue streams from each customer segment. Can you share what you do with your customer segment to see how you can increase? Is there any strategy you use? Don't look at my document. I just trying to find out, based on where you are, if there are any strategies you kind of use to increase the revenue streams.
Marketing.
Marketing, okay? Any other way? Have you tried developing new type of income streams based on one thing?
Hi, good night.
No.
So, I usually do lunches, right? And, after some time, I kind of realized that I was not capitalizing by just providing lunches. So what I started doing, I started including juices, and then I started including a little bit of sweet treats. So like, and then I started doing the backyard farming, which the intention for that is being able to provide like salad bowls. So that would kind of double up on, rather than just selling lunches alone, I'd be able to give persons, additional items, and that would, because I'm already out, selling daily. So then, if I have more stuff available to them, that not costing as much to provide, then I think, so far I've been able to double up on that. In addition to that, right, this is something that I recently started doing as well. Seeing that I'm always interacting with customers, and from time to time persons have different requests, I no longer limit myself to just selling foods. So recently, now it's Christmas season, I actually started putting through, doing little personal shopping for persons, and because they're already coming to buy food, and then they're looking for stuff for Christmas, and I can easily put through this order. So that has allowed me to kind of double up. I'm not just kind of guide me if I have it correct, please. But yeah, that's what I've been doing so far to double up.
That's very good. Very, very good. So you've already started diversifying your revenues by also identifying what's happening in the market as well and tapping into opportunities. Anybody else? Can you give us an example? Volunteers, hello.
Yes, good night. Well, I'm working. It's a work in progress. I'm cream and deodorant with the oil, and also I offer persons who want their coconut grated with my machine. I could use that for as another source of income in the business as well. Well, I've been doing research in regards to coconut fiber, compost, and all that. So I'll be able to use everything for the product.
Okay, that's very good. Anyone else want to contribute to the conversation?
Okay, I use my poultry manual. So the manual, persons do come looking for it. Sometimes, you make a little extra dollar from it. I also use the chicken and do a little chicken ham around this time of the year once I have. So I don't have to go and buy that extra chicken out there because I can use my own chicken and do the chicken ham. And I use my own chicken into doing when I have catering, which I do on a small scale. So whenever I do that, I use my own chicken and whatever I go in my backyard.
Very good. Very good. So, I guess you can see that there are ways and means you can diversify your revenue streams. And really quickly, this guide will show you different ways. I mean, we are accustomed to just selling our assets. And in this context, your stock would be your assets. And we're familiar with Flow and Digicel charging us usage fees. And also you have, for those of you who watch Netflix and so on, you have that monthly subscription fees. Have you ever thought about creating some sort of subscription package? Because and regular, there you have your regulars who would want to order specific package, and you can package and create these box subscriptions where they pay on a monthly basis and you just invoice them. Any thoughts?
Someone just mentioned in the chat that they're gonna do that for Christmas. Well, something to that sort.
Okay, even seasonal. Yes, Patrice, that's true. You can try that. But you can also try, if you have other things you can bundle it, because sometimes people might get bored of one particular product. So if you have a different product range, you can create these subscription packages. You can look online and search it up. It's a fantastic business model and selling like hotcakes because you now created a service. You just have to think of delivery.
Amazon does that. And then they would give you like a coupon or savings if you subscribe. So every month they would send you the product or whatever.
And you can say like in your case, you have different like projects or products, a theme a month, or you get a special something a month.
Yeah.
Brand around it.
Hello.
Hi.
So I would like to share my what I'm doing on my products. I do CMOS, and initially it was supposed to be strictly CMOS, dried CMOS, until I realized a lot of people didn't know how to use it in different ways and that sort of thing. So I started to do different value-added products. And after other people, started doing those stuff as well, we decided we wanted to do an educational farm, because a lot of people like to come, see the process, all that sort of things. So we created a package, which we're planning to launch next year, where you could come and tour the farm, get your pictures and stuff. In addition to that, we created an association where the same things that we're doing, we're trying to, give other people, vulnerable people, the opportunity to be on the same marketing scale, had the same opportunity, so it doesn't look like we're competing. So it's like we selling the product, we making byproducts, we doing trainings and stuff, and we touring the farm. But it's all around CMOS production.
Well, that's a CMOS. The sky's the limit. So you don't necessarily even have to look at it from the perspective of the product itself, but you can build services around it. I think it's a huge missed opportunity for it. For those of you who are in agro-processing and you are, I think Barron Foods in St. Lucia does it, where they actually produce for others with a brand. Or have you seen Mountaintop making water, but it's actually someone else's brand? So you're actually producing for someone and they're paying you a license fee to kind of do that. So that's an opportunity. Brokerage fees, that's if you're introducing something to someone, but I don't think it necessarily applies. Advertising revenue. Say you have, I've seen someone with their transportation vehicle do a wrap around it, and they're getting paid through Flow for just driving around advertising while they're doing their business visit. So, and these are just a few examples. There are many others, right? Then of course, cost structure. So you have your revenue. Because we've already looked at the fact that revenue is not profit, and I keep on saying it because there's some people who don't listen and make money and start spending it like water. And before you know it, they can't pay any of their commitments. So very important. So what the business model will show you on the left-hand side are the cost, your key resources, and key activities. So sometimes some businesses are cost-driven, always trying to cut costs. Sometimes it's not worth cutting costs. So look at Digicel as an example. They like to cut costs. That's why they don't necessarily have their own office. They rent it out and so on. So if they have to leave, they leave without much, you could say, much baggage, because they operate very lean. But you're in the business of delivering value. So please, yes, while doesn't mean you shouldn't be looking at your cost and cutting it where you can, but it's the old way to be cutting costs like that without actually looking at value. Your job is to deliver value to the customers and even look at creating some, if you're doing, say, creating products that are in cosmetics, for example, using what you grow, that could actually target a much higher end market. So don't think and don't feel that when things getting high, it's only about cutting costs. Next thing, you cut the very asset that actually generates value for your customer. So it's important. What time is it? Oh my goodness. Latoya, this day just went really fast. So anyway, before I go, I did promise you two things, so I'm going to go quickly. Underfunding your business. Underfunding your business. I did speak a lot about revenue-based financing or royalty and how you can structure it. And here I did a little bit of a calculation. I said money is sourced internally or from others, and which an investor injects capital into the business in return for a fixed percentage of ongoing growth or net revenues, with payment increases and decreases based on the business revenues. Meaning, you know that if you're taking a loan and you have to pay this fixed interest every month, when market changes, things get very tight. It might be tight unless you have like a pool of funds there to cover. But that's just one way. Another way is this strategy, which allows you to pay yourself first, so to speak. In other words, you're able to cover what you need. And we had that conversation about maybe not offering it from your gross revenue because you might have some immediate direct costs, and then knowing exactly how much of the net revenue you can actually give up. You don't want to say, oh, I'll give you 30% of my monthly revenue, and next thing you have nothing to cover your expenses. So you do need a revenue-based financial forecast. I would be attaching a sample one for you to look at. So really and truly, operating costs and everything don't really matter too much if you're looking at it based on your, you're not looking at the balance sheet, you're looking at the a profit and loss sheet, right? So you wouldn't necessarily look at the full so think about it like a loan. Some people refer to it as a loan, some others refer to it as an investment, but it's midway between a loan and investment. It has features. So depending on how you want to phrase it, it doesn't matter. As long as you phrase it as a revenue-based finance model, if people in your market that you're going to are accustomed to a loan, then what you can do is frame it as a loan and then just explain the parameters to them. So normally you have the principal amount that you want to borrow, and the amount that you want to share out of either your revenue. There's another, when we come down here, this one is based out of free cash flow, same concept. Whatever percentage per month that you can handle easily without it hurting you. And then this is very important because you're not going to be paying them forever and a day. In a contract, you can say, oh yeah, I'm paying you 5%, but then it could be 5% lifetime. You're going to be paying out 5% lifetime, or you want to come to an agreement earlier clock to say, okay, look, how much money are you looking for a return? A bank's, when you calculate the interest, the return is like maybe 1%, one times the amount or less. Because bank financing tends to be a cheaper method, right? Even though the bank manages risk, when you compare it to other type of financing, it's still quite reasonable in terms of how much money the bank is getting. It's just very hard to get. If you were to go through the equity route to say an angel investor or any type of investor that wants ownership, their risk is also high. So they want to, for a piece of your business, they're probably thinking about getting maybe 5 to 10%, 20% of your business. Why? Because maybe they're coming in with the network, the money, everything pretty much is almost them getting it over the line, and you're going to make more money at the end of the day. But they want a higher return for risking the capital. That's why they call this, any equity debt is called risk capital. So one can agree, and generally between where angel investor is looking for 10x his investment or 5x the investment, and a royalty might come in between 1 to like 3 times the investment. Not 3%, 3 times the investment, meaning If we're borrowing 250,000 EC, that investor, by the time you pay back, you multiply this multiplier to see how much in total they're going to get as a return on the investment plus the principal amount that they gave you. Don't get vexed. Don't fuss. Oh, wow. Congratulations, Patrice. Spice coffee. Ooh, nice. So don't get vexed because people are risking capital. So you have to understand, you know, sometimes you get in our feelings, especially if you know the person. All of a sudden, I've had an experience where I structured, you can structure this even through services. So I had this particular client wanting a Mercedes-Benz type of service. I could give you something where you pay a small amount, like 500 EC, but in return, let us structure a revenue-based financing deal where I value my services, right, in total. And based on my services, I say, okay, based on this, you're going to give me a royalty over X period of time. Because guess what? What I was going to do for the client would increase her revenues 10 times. So even if I'm asking for a little 2% of that or 1% of that, it's a pittance based on what I'm generating for her. And it's a win-win scenario, the way it works. I do my work, I make money. It's performance-based. If I don't do the work, I don't make money. So it's very similar in this case where there is a multiplier. You must understand that the investor is risking capital and must have some sort of multiplier in mind. For revenue-based financing, it's normally not too high. It's in between an equity or a normal debt transaction. And I've seen it fluctuate between 1 to 3%, maybe 4 times. The thing about this is you can agree one time in a contract to say, these are the parameters through which we're working. You can even say, give me a 1 year, what they call moratorium, grace period, before I even start paying. So that flexibility is built in. So think about this in the context of a transaction where within our context, where most likely you might not be looking at a traditional investor per se, but you're looking at someone who can give you that type of investment, and you're presenting it in such a manner to say, hey, maybe it is even someone in the supply chain, maybe it's a Graves or someone, to say, listen, this is what I need an injection, this is a business, and this is what I needed for X, Y, Z. This is how we can structure. So once you've done your pitch and everything, and they're interested, this is when you start to have the conversation on how you're expecting to get paid, etc. So I did a small calculation just for you to understand. So when you see 1.75 in this example, you multiply it by the principal, so the total person will get a contract that specifies over what period of time, right? So they can say either until we reach this cap or by X time. And sometimes I've seen some structured where if you go below a particular amount in a particular month, because you can protect your revenue. If you're not making that much or hitting a particular amount every month that is comfortable to cover your expenses, you can put it here. This payment occurs only if the projection, that monthly revenue is above X amount. This way you protect yourself, right? It's great because it's contractual, it's very legal. So you're not comfortable with any type of percentage from your revenues, that's no problem. You're talking about cash flow. You can do payments based on the free cash flow, which is actually safer. It's just called demand dividend. So does this answer your question? Whoever asked it last week? Ashley? Okay, so we're just at time, but I will share two more things with you. So there is, for those of you who are not familiar with the business model canvas, and you'll be getting the slides anyway. So in our slides, I think I had extensively gone through it, but I'll go through this, and this is a variation of a green business model because our business is green and it is much more appropriate for it. So this is called a navigator because it does provide a lot more, it adds more information in it. So we're just going to click green business model in here. You're going to see the definition of green because it varies from a normal, traditional, simple green model. We're dealing with climate impacts, we're dealing with climate smart agriculture and so on. So then looking at a green business model is much more appropriate. And so here has a definition. It gives you areas like the motivation. It talks about synergies. It's a whole tool for you. And then the types of models too. And a lot of us are in this waste as a resource or prosumers and co-creation. A lot of us are in this space. And green and efficient and localized production. This is where we're at. Okay. Is this tool a useful tool? Hold on a second. After it. I can hop in. Where's your office? Okay, I could probably. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Yes, sorry about that. So I wanted to orient you with this. So you're going to get this now so that you can play with it. It provides much more information because the information I'll give you is just going to be a little bit of an intro to the business model, simple, but seeing that we elements to it on the green business, I thought this is more appropriate. And it'll tell you about how you can scale impacts and some practical examples. Questions? Okay, it's useful. Perfect. Because sometimes there's only so much you can learn in a short space of time. And Why are we doing this? Because this, you can't talk about financing if you don't if you don't have a business to finance, yeah? So even if you want to kind of modify and even increase your, revenues, one has to look at innovating some aspects of the model. Each has an impact, because when you are describing your business and seeing that you're in a sustainable business, it is now the normal to incorporate environmental, social, governance elements in it. It's called ESG. And it also increases your offering, the value of your offering, meaning you can even repackage it as a much more upscale product offering. So you're getting this toolkit called the Navigator, and it really is extensive. There might be one or two, maybe resources that might be a bit old because of when it was designed, but it's still very, very relevant. And it even has like its own database for you to check and stuff like that. And what your role is as an entrepreneur, what you need to do, and so on. So this is good. Yeah. And now, whoever had asked, how do you actually get investment from an investor? This once you have gone through knowing how to develop the business model, we didn't necessarily have the time to go into the value proposition canvas where you can identify the problems, but the questions are there to help prompt you. The key thing is when you're looking at identifying problems for your customers or what their needs are, look at it from this perspective. Everybody hires, think of it as a job. Everybody hires a particular product or a service to do a particular task for them. That is how you can describe a person's need. Is this useful? Does this make sense?
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm. So when you look at it like from that angle, everybody is an employer hiring a service or a product to fulfill a particular task, a job. You can look up jobs to be done. It's a really good framework to help us empathize with our customers. So the term empathy really means to understand. And this is one of the biggest challenges businesses have in our region. Because we're very product oriented and not market oriented, we do not take the time to understand our customers. You ask someone, who are you targeting? Everybody. Oh, come on. This is 2023. You must have an idea of who your ideal customer is. Because yes, you could target the masses, but you can't afford to target masses. You're too small for that. But obviously, there's a period where you're searching for the right customer profile that comes to you, because there's a market for everybody. Who goes to Anne is not going to go to Angela, because very subtly you have different markets, and I'm going to give you key example. You think it's going to be the same if you're targeting a very health conscious millennial person who's very health conscious, socially conscious, more into the vegan lifestyle versus an executive, might be both females, who's in an office working extremely long hours, have no time to cook. Don't you think these two personalities are absolutely different? And their needs are totally different. And when we talk about needs, remember, we're in finance, and I told you, finance is as much emotional than it is functional. So taking that same concept, you have different type of jobs. You have a job that is financial, a job that is functional, meaning it is to do a task. End of story. I do this to do this. But it could be emotional. I do this for safety. So I did an exercise today and I asked someone, what type of jobs is it? They said, well, I buy the insurance in order to, what was it? To get a loan. That's a feature, a function. But on an emotional standpoint, is to feel more secure. Then on a social standpoint, how does the person want to be seen and perceived? What are their social in society? You see how that happens? You can literally break it down. Yes, but you're going beyond what everyone is teaching you about target marketing. You're being very granular, being very specific, because I'll be very honest with you. This 80-20 rule does apply. You will end up having 80% of your revenues coming from 20% of your customers. So you need to identify that 20% and unlock the 20%. So this pain and gain, I hope I've shared at least enough for you, and it does have some questions you can answer, which will help you now drill deeper. Because it's not just like, oh, what problem are your customer trying to solve? You're going deeper, man, deeper. See the question, what opportunities do you provide for your people to be faster, more cost efficient, more effective, more efficient, happier, safer? Happy, safe, these are emotional things, right? When people buy a product, food is, and they're not buying the food, they're not buying it because they're just hungry. They're buying because they love food and it makes them happy. It takes them back to their childhood. There's a satisfaction like a baby, you know, when they eat. Make sense? So when you are creating these statements and you answer this, it's very easy. So notice I have business model in the corner. Yes, you're going to work on your business model. And yes, you should be able to speak about it. But when you're looking at investment, you have to put everything together. Because once you answer these questions, you can now summarize it for the person. This is the problem I'm solving for my customers. The customers I'm currently targeting are millennials who are health conscious, and they're also eco-conscious, and they tend to be very concerned about the environment. And hence, a lot of them are vegan, and they're looking for cleaner, healthier options. So I identified an opportunity, right, for me to deliver X, Y, Z to this client in a happy way. But if you didn't do the exercise to find out exactly what their needs are, how would you know? So there's some additional tools you can use called the empathy map. Let me see if I can share it. Not which one is it? Okay, if you can give me 10 more minutes, because I am also, I recognize it's late for you guys. 10 more minutes of your time. Let me wrap up. I just want to show you empathy map. It was something very similar. Design thinking workshop for to design an insurance product for. Guess what? People in agribusiness. So they have to do the same thing. Empathy mapping. Can you see my screen? This helps you identify what someone for your customers. Who are their friends? What is the market offering them? What are you hearing people saying about this particular customer segment? Notice I talk about millennials, this and that. So already I'm reading about trends, about millennials. I'm also observing. So I'm hearing and I'm also seeing what is happening with this particular client or this profile that I have. So first thing, you identify a target profile, and then you start asking yourself all these questions. What do you see? What do you hear? What's going on in the marketplace? What do you hear on the news about these people? Is what you're hearing what you see? Huh? How are they thinking? What are their major pain points, preoccupations? What is keeping them up at night? Because if you can find out what keeps them up at night, that is like a shark bite, you have your answer. What are their worries? What are their aspirations? But you need to put yourself in the shoes, because you yourself know that if you were in your own shoes, you because this way you can craft a solution that is even beyond, you can craft a product that is just beyond just what you're selling, the commodity. You can create a service around it. Let me give you an example. So we're all women here. So in my session, I had a group that did some group work, and they were focused on single women, low-income single women. And when they did the exercise, they identified that the women need much more than just an insurance product to cover and protect them. They need an investment product as well, so that when they're paying the premiums, they also can build their cash value as well. And not only that, they incorporated things like advisory services and hand-holding services, basically catering to the person's need. So you can imagine if you have gone through that process and now you're telling, you package everything together for your customer, that ideal customer is going to come to you, no question, and pay whatever it is for the bundled package of the services, because you're addressing and fulfilling the need. Does this make sense? Ladies?
Yes, it does.
Mhm. So jobs to be done, very important. So you can use both. You can use the empathy map to just kind of lay it out there and get a whole lay of the land of the client you're targeting. And then you now go into specifics with jobs to be done. What jobs do each of them want and what are the functional jobs, etc. And then you're going to say, okay, what are the pain points and what are their gains, okay? And to them, how do they measure success? Is it by getting that particular product? You need to write it down, because this way you can now go back and amend your value proposition to them. And you're linking this to developing your product, so you can now increase your revenue streams for it. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Where was I before? So yeah, I was on so this definitely, hold on. The pitch canvas. The pitch canvas definitely is is a tool you can use to help craft your messaging. And it's all visual. You can answer it and you're able to then, if you follow, you say everything is patterns and script. If you follow this method, it's easy for you to even craft that conversation to get to the point of having a conversation about revenue-based financing. Reactions. Hello. Any reactions, concerns?
I think it's a great idea, and it can, if somebody has to pull out a phone to read, you would be aware of what it is and what it's all about. You'll be able to sell a business by knowing, once you answer these information and you remember them, you'll be just by one question from any investor, any individual.
Yes, 100%. And it's easy to remember, you just have to follow the framework. So lastly, this is a simplified version of a business model canvas. And this was an entrepreneur that had a number of different services. So this just gives you just a landscape of what it is. And here you can use the opportunity to list each customer segment that you're targeting. This was done wrong. So this is more like, okay, in this, like adults, okay, that's it. Like internet cable users. So actual customer segments can be put here. This was just a listing of it, but she hadn't put it in the revenue streams. So when you input, you can actually input, it will show up here and you can see what the market size is, right? Then over here, you have a section where you can highlight the value proposition, whether it's you're building trust, loyalty, it's convenience, right? And then easy calculation, quick calculation. Right? Quick calculation. So here we're looking at maybe you have 4 customers, right? And it's saying your market share. So maybe you're occupying the full market, or maybe you're only occupying this. And then, 1%, which is none. Let's just say 100 customers, right? Which might be one. And your price is, say, depending on what it is you're selling, your price is something like 50. And the number of purchases, maybe you're doing it per week. And this will give you a total. Is this useful? So it helps you with your planning. And then it's sort of, your cost structure will be the same, where you list out your costs, and based on your listing, it will churn out the information and you put it in there. And then the resulting canvas will have some figures now in it. So here you can now, when you are looking at the different diverse revenue streams, it doesn't have to be along these lines. It is defined by you. So it could be products, it could be services, it could be additional things you're selling. You just need to put a little bracket and describe it. And then it gives, this just tells you feasibility, because obviously, and it's good for the revenue projections that will now help you make your plans. But when it comes to costs, it bundles all the costs together, both fixed costs and variable costs. So it just gives you an idea of all your costs together. But going into that financial spreadsheet is very key, because the spreadsheet will now break it down. You're very welcome. So now we've gone beyond time. It's 8:32, I think. Latoya and Keithlin will kill me if I overextend. I just want to hear from you. If this is good, useful, what did you glean from it, and how are you going to apply it? Ladies, it's your time to talk, I've done my part. I would really love to hear. Sherry-Ann, good. Natalie, great. You're welcome, Natisha. Anyone wants to do an audio? Or we're tired? Okay, well, you're all here. You seem shocked to silence. Do you know this is our last session? So please give me some feedback. Let me hear from you.
Good night. I would say that you did an excellent delivery. You explained everything well as well. And I must say thanks a lot and all the best, not only to you, but to everyone online. We really appreciate it and we take nothing for granted. God bless you and all the best.
Same to you. Thank you. Anyone else? Well, the fact that you're still here, there must be some value. No other comments? Thank you, Joylyn. Thank you, Renita. I'll make sure I get the stuff to Latoya so she can share it with you guys in the manner that she's supposed to. So at this point in time, I know it's a lot to take in. And I try to fit in as much as I can. And there's only so much one can do. The only thing I can encourage you that this is supposed to help unlock your financial decision-making capabilities. It's supposed to help you identify some critical areas to help improve your financial literacy. But it's here, you're not an island. There are resources out there. Keep on identifying, doing your research, and seeing how we can optimize the business. Added to that financial literacy manual, I'm preparing a handout that kind of identifies a number of different sections. So I wish you all the best. It's the end of the year, and I wish you a fantastic Christmas. I'm in Barbados, and I wish I was in St. Vincent. I'm only 20 minutes away, which really kills me. But my time will soon come. Have a fantastic end of the year, and I look forward to seeing you during graduation. And enjoy your next session. Latoya, what's the next session?
The next session on Thursday is agritourism.
Great. One business model that you can integrate. Great, great, great. Very good. Awesome. So enjoy. I may pop in on Thursday. No. I think I'm traveling Thursday. I might not, but all the same, I wish you peace and love. Thank you.